Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Nadi Digital Economy Malaysia, which is where me and I, Karamjit Singh, and my colleague Dzof, are going to kickstart this with an announcement. MDEC, the Malaysian Digital Economy Corporation, made about its a big event they're having soon, which is the Malaysia Tech Month 2021. And they organized one last year also. And to them, this is a big event because they've got about 40. There are going to be 40 events that are happening in the month, and it starts, this month. Oh no, we're still in July. It starts next month in August, which is tomorrow, and it's about 300 local and international speakers, right? From over, and they're targeting about 20,000 participants from 50 countries. Now, this conference, MDEC says it's important because the week before they announced DIF5, which is Digital Investments Futures 5, which is their strategy to announce strategy to try to bring in a certain number of foreign investments into the country. And the MDEC said that this conference is going to be a key part to trigger and catalyze global interest in what's going on in Malaysia and to start further conversations after the conference between various parties. I am personally skeptical that an online conference can have such an impact, especially so because last year after the conference, MDEC did not share what was the impact, maybe 6 months down the road from Malaysia Tech Month 2020. So if we don't know what was the impact from last year, I feel MDEC is putting way too much hope on the fact that this year's conference or month-long series of events will be a catalyst for investments to come into the country. And that MDEC also says that I think we actually did not, sorry Dzof, just let me finish, because we did not talk about DIF5, right, from last week, because it's announced I think on a Friday of last week, and wanted to digest it further. But DIF5 is really MDEC saying is that their attempt to support My Digital blueprint, which calls for about 70 billion ringgit worth of investment to coming into Malaysia by 2030. Okay, so that's like in a 9-year, 10-year time frame. And MDEC said that their target with DIF5 is to help bring in 50 billion ringgit of investments into the digital economy. And they're focusing on 5 key verticals of industry, 5 focused technologies. And one of them is actually, one of the 5 is on analytics, AI. And they're talking about 5 emerging technologies, where you've got Bitcoin is one of them. And also they call it not virtual reality, but extended reality. And also digital global business services. And then they also attract like 50 Fortune 500 companies into Malaysia and help to establish 5 unicorns. And we've already got one which with Kasim was announced last week, and also creating 50,000 high-value jobs in the multimedia super corridor. And MDEC, I asked MDEC for clarity and what their definition of a high-value job was. They did not give it to me. I was hoping for a simple cutoff point in terms of salary, right? 4,500 ringgit, which is like 1,100 US dollars. They did not give me back, so we are kind of left hanging as to what MDEC thinks is a high value job, right, to be created over the next many years, 50,000. So that being said, back to this conference, they think this conference will help be a key catalyst to trigger all the rest, to eventually happen also. And I'm just doubtful that a conference, especially an online conference, can be a key catalyst for a very important investor conversation to happen. So Dzof?
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to agree with you in that. So I've been working with some friends who want to do an online conference, and we all agree that the networking part of things is the most challenging when you're trying to do an online conference. It's the thing that when you do a physical conference, you have a captive audience, you can sit down, have dinner with them. There are all these things that you can do that it's really actually very, very hard to do on an online conference. You can send food over, but the point is you're not having that conversation with them while you're eating, right? Which is what you get from a face-to-face event. We've looked at what other conferences try to do, and they all have their own takes on it of how to encourage networking, but they're all very, very difficult. It's very, very difficult. It only works when both sides have something that they want. And when you are trying to do this thing where you're trying to search for common ground, where you're trying to identify a key attractor that will bring both of you together, it's kind of like brainstorming. It's kind of hard to do if you're not like just having these casual conversations, I think. Maybe this one will prove wrong, but this is what we've seen. The second thing I want to say about Div 5, when I saw it, I felt, I mean, forgive me, it's very results oriented. So it's very like 5 unicorns, 50,000 high value jobs, right? Whereas before this, a lot of the MDEC initiative over the last couple of years has been very more ecosystem building, environment building, right? We want to lay the groundwork so that, you know, to nurture, like Data Kita, for example. It was very much, we need to have this ecosystem where people are sharing data, okay? So it wasn't so much like have 5 data dictionaries and 6 repositories, right? It was like, these are the key things that need to be put in place so that, forgive me for saying this, Karam, it's very much like MDEC is trying to justify its existence almost.
For me, somebody said what, so it's interesting you say that. That's quite harsh, okay, Dzof. I think that's quite harsh. Normally, but somebody did say that also it felt like they're just trying to create some PR buzz. But to be honest, MDEC had been planning for this, you know, strategy around in bringing in investments into the country, and they actually even had a town hall on this to share it with the staff back in like February or March of this year. So there was a town hall to say we're going to come up with a strategy, but it just feels like it's a very loose strategy what they have created. So, but the point there, but this, by the way, this conference also they said that is to celebrate the 25th anniversary of MDEC. It's their silver anniversary this year, and of course under the muted circumstances of, you know, COVID. So, but you know, we got to live with it, right? So let's just move on now.
So as we know from news stories about Jendela, that Malaysia is slowly sunsetting the 3G towers and replacing with 4G or even 5G, right? And the concern is, what about people who only use 3G right now? What about people who can't use 4G? Well, an interesting study by OpenSignal has found that of the people that are using only 3G, 81.9% of them actually have a 4G capable phone and are living in a 4G covered area. So you think about that, Karam, right? You're like almost 90, more than 80% of the people who are using 3G now don't have to use 3G. They can move to 4G. So why are they not moving across? Well, one suggested theory is that it may be that they're using an older subscription, an older SIM card, and they just need to upgrade their SIM card. And they don't want to upgrade their SIM card because they think it's too expensive or difficult to do so. The other theory is that they don't want to upgrade to 4G because they think 4G takes up more battery life or uses up more data, which means they reach their quota faster.
Correct.
I don't know, Karam. Wouldn't you want faster speed if you could get it?
Yeah, no, but this is a simple matter of consumer education, right? And I think, I suspect the real reason is, like you mentioned, right? A lot of them think that if they use 4G, they'll end up using more data, and that's a reality. When you're on a higher speed service, you tend to use more data, and people don't want to pay for higher data cap, and I think that's the underlying fear. And but also there may be a fair amount. So we are actually talking about a small group of people only, right? Don't think like when you hear 89%, oh, 89% of Malaysians are on 3G. No, it's of those who are still on 3G, right? Which is a small group. They're saying 89% of those actually have 4G also in their phone, and they're not upgrading. So we're talking about this small group. And I really think it's maybe they're just not happy and they don't know what's going on. When maybe it's right, they didn't change, a simple matter of changing the setting, right, to being able to accept 4G service also. So it could be a matter of that, but a lot of people are ignorant also, right, are not aware. and equally amount don't want to pay more. So it's a two issues. And I know you have to bring up a quick micro example of within your own families of, just go ahead with that.
Yeah, I mean, I hope I don't get in trouble for this, but my father-in-law has a Streamix subscription and he's still on Streamix, and they keep asking him to upgrade to fiber, and he keeps with the ADSL line because he's paying a very, very low price for it. He got a very good deal for it. So he doesn't want to. I mean, his argument is that he has a handphone that has data, so that's okay. Between that and the ADSL line, he just switches between the two. But that's just an example of how hard is it to move.
One happy consumer right there, right? So, and for him, lucky. But if Unify, if Telecom was going to sunset Streamix, then they would be reaching out to him and at least telling him, you're going to get upgrade or no service at all. And I think that will be the motivation he needs. But let's move on to the next story. And
but that's quite harsh. That's quite a harsh motivation.
True. But we're saying, hey, this is an outdated service already.
iSend, Karam, the next story.
Sorry. Okay. So we've got a story of a local. No, Dzof. We'll go to iSend last. Let's do the 4G. The KPMG one is important.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll just start that again. So,
okay. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So it's good because it's not live, right? We can do this edits all later. Don't worry. So so now let's move on to the next story, which is quite interesting, where it's a global consulting and services company, KPMG. They produced their 2021 Global Technology Industry Survey, and they spoke to about 800 industry leaders, and they found that 61% of them felt that the pandemic has changed their opinion of which cities they think will become leading technology innovation hubs. Only a third still believe that it's going to remain the Silicon Valley, but for 61% of them said that we think it is open, and there's I think we could see new players in there. And this is interesting because Kuala Lumpur came up, right, as being ranked as among the 9th most promising city in the emerging world, right, to be a technology innovation hub. So which is kind of interesting. And so there's this guy in Malaysia, KPMG has got a gentleman called Guy Edwards. And he was saying that, look, the government has definitely done a lot of things to show that it's serious about, positioning Malaysia as a technology innovator, as a leading technology hub. And he also spoke about how we've now introduced the National 4IR policy, right? So he says that while there's a lot going on from a government rhetoric point of view, more needs to be done than just introducing newer policies. And he suggests that there should be greater public and private partnerships in research and higher education that could play a role to actually helping the country realize its full potential and climb up the ranks further. And because he said these kind of partnerships will also demonstrate evidence to the private sector that there is a long-term viability to such policies being announced, right? Their policies are being actually acted upon. And this will help the private sector have more confidence that this is real. And because there's no one-size-fits-all policy, he said that there are a lot of multiple government agencies out there doing various things, but companies need to continuously engage with the government agencies also, right, in order to reap the benefits, right, of the government's commitment. So he's saying government is doing this, but we want to see greater engagement with the private sector, and private sector has the onus to keep themselves updated and engage with the various government agencies. Hey, what's going on? I understand this, what's going on. So let's talk and see what we can make happen because we have an interest in this area. So, so that's kind of interesting, I think.
I mean, it's always been, for years and years and years, we've been talking about the talent issue in Malaysia. And certainly, I mean, I'm looking at the list that they have in America. So Malaysia is the 9th highest in the ASPAC region. But in America, you're seeing cities like Boston and Chicago high up the list, right? And we know Boston is up there really because it's a font of very, very smart, very talented workforce, right? So just by virtue of having a smart and talented workforce will actually drive you up the list. And you don't even have to look at anything else. Yeah. And I agree. I mean, if you're worried that good talent will always migrate elsewhere, the answer to it is produce so much good talent that you can afford to lose some that go overseas.
Absolutely,
because
super
you have
important.
enough locally. I mean,
No,
and I
but
mean,
one
use
key point. One key point also made was that look, it has increased the perception of decision makers in companies that innovation can now happen literally anywhere. But no matter
Yes.
where these tech hubs spring up, they say certain factors are crucial to the long-term viability, and one of them is talent. So you're right. We always do lose some of our talent to Singapore and to the UK, Canada, US, but the idea is just produce so much of it that we can afford to see 5% being skimmed off the top, right, every year. And unfortunately, the 5% is never skimmed off the bottom, right? It's skimmed off the top. So you got to just deal with it. And we're not the only country losing talent to this, 5-6 countries around the world that always attract talent, but deal with it, right? This is an ongoing, decades-long challenge. So let's not dwell on it anymore. And now let's just move on to the last story, which is a quick one. Talk about talent, right? So there's this Malaysian logistics company called iStore, iSend. And we actually had the founders on our show, I think sometime last year. This duo based in the Klang Valley, they have launched a startup to help companies, e-commerce companies, or even brick and mortar companies which are selling things online, to help them with all the unsexy, unglamorous backend, right? Your logistics, your POS integration, right? Your warehouse management, your workers, who need to know today, what is my route within the warehouse, what to do, and all that and glamorous stuff. They built it themselves. I was asking them why built it themselves, because they want it to be customized to how companies operate in Malaysia. So they spend years to build their own solution, and they've got top MNCs to be their clients. And in fact, in the article, it says that they've got about 300 foreign companies and about 300 local companies, right, in their database. And they're already operating in a few countries, not just in Malaysia. They're operating in Singapore, in Malaysia, in Indonesia. And with the funding, and so this is that they actually raised $5.5 million US. This was announced in end of January this year. They just this week on Monday announced that part of the extended round, a Japanese multinational, which is called, let me see, what's the company called again? Yamato Holdings Group, right? Yamato Holding came in with their participation in this round. It took so long because Yamato is part of it's a listed company in Japan, and the due diligence and for them to cross to jump over the hops within their own internal process took an extra 6 months. And those of you who know, Yamato is like the DHL of Japan, right? They are a very strong embedded, strong local logistics player. So they've come into iStore, iSend, which shows that they see value in the platform that iStore, iSend has built. And now, in total, iStore, iSend has easily crossed over 6.5 billion. Sorry, one day they'll be raising $1 billion, but not yet. 6.5 million, at least $6.5 million US in their current funding round. And so this is where they stand. And I highlight this because it's a very interesting Malaysian company that is already a regional footprint. And actually now with this new investment, they're actually going to go into Vietnam and Thailand. So they're going to be in like 6 countries at some point. So it's very interesting. And a lot of traditional e-commerce companies or your brick and mortar companies can use them. And they'll organize everything from you. The moment the customer click to buy, these guys will take over and accelerate the customer's user experience with your brand. So credit to them. And this just shows that, where there's very good talent in Malaysia, and they're going to be further building up their business from within Malaysia. So with that,
I mean,
sorry, you want any last thoughts before we end the show?
No, it's just that this story reminds me a little bit of what Kylie of 500 Startups said. That he said when he looks at unicorns, the unicorns that take up a lot of the newspaper space are really sexy unicorns, right? The ones which have loads of money and loads of visibility, and everyone knows their name and stuff. Yeah. But he says there are also these unicorns who very quietly do their work. They do back-end processes. They're not super glamorous.
No.
And they meet the $1 billion valuation, and they do so in a very modest way.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't need to splash things out. They just gain customers and they gain footprint, and then lo and behold, they scale up and they get that. They don't need to do like these crazy
big public pivots, right? Build a super app
like grabs everything in its path.
True.
So just do that simple thing very well, Karam. I guess that's the
true. Very true. Okay. With that, then we'll end this week's show. We hope you enjoyed some of our opinions and thoughts on some of the stories, and we look forward to welcoming you back next week.